family. Yeah, so they're at a Anna's first cousin is getting married, and so they are up at the wedding. I have a wedding tonight as well, which I had agreed to like a year and a half ago. So I had to stay here to officiate a wedding here, but they're all up at the family wedding. He's doing great. Yeah, he's doing really well. He's doing first grade. Yeah, first grade. I know. So he's he's just a happy kid, and Micah's finding his way. He's fifth grade, and he's doing pretty well. And he and Arlo are still a pair. So
are they together, or may not?
I think that we wouldn't do that to them. Like, I think I would be fine with the kids. Like, I think. I just don't think. Hi, good morning. I just think that sorry, who's coming in?
Wow.
Okay, great. Awesome. Well, Boker Tov and good morning. This morning we have a wonderful Parshat Bereshit, which is the very beginning of the Torah, and it's an awesome opportunity to sort of do some learning from the very beginning of Genesis. And but we'll do a sort of a brief service this morning and allow ourselves to sort of come into this space and to be together. So our prayer books, which are underneath your seats, you can open up. And we're going to open with the words of Hine Mato, and that is found on page 188. Hine Mato Manai Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Mato Manai Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Mato Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Mato Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Mato Manai Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Mato Manai Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. In our Jewish tradition, the morning service includes many different components. And one of the components that is at the very beginning, which can be found on page 194, is you have a series of blessings and prayers that are were originally designed to be said in the home and not actually in our worship service. And the idea was that you were supposed to wake up to the day and start to praise God and start to thank God for our beings and for our bodies and for everything that's sort of going on. And then later, as you got to the temple or the sanctuary, then you would sort of say the rest of the prayers. And then at a later point, the rabbis started recognizing that maybe people weren't doing that at home, so they inserted some of these prayers into our service. But the prayers are also a beautiful physical warm-up, right, to the act of praying. And so you'll see that they have to do with our body and with our soul. And if you want, we'll read together on page 194. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who formed the human body with skill, created the body's many pathways and openings. It is well known before your throne of glory that if one of them be wrongly opened or closed, it would be impossible to endure and stand before you. Blessed are you, Adonai, who heals all flesh, working wondrously. Baruch atah Adonai, rofecho basar, uma'afli la'asot. On the next page, the words of Elohai Neshama. And we're going to chant the first line, Elohai Neshama, shenatata bi tehorahi. My God, the soul that you have given me is pure. You created it, you shaped it, and you breathed it into me. Elohai Neshama shenatata bi tehorahi. 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 Chatzi Kaddish can be found on page 208. Excuse me, that's the Kaddish de Rabbanan, and I apologize, I turned to the wrong page, but the page that we are going to turn to is, one second.
Can I just say,
Yeah,
usually we have these services when a kid is getting bar about Mitzvah.
yes.
So this week, we obviously don't have bar on Mitzvah.
Yeah, so usually bar mitzvah on Saturday mornings, but the week after the high holidays, we decided not to have a bar mitzvah. So it's a small crowd. We do Torah study and we do other things. So it's a small group today, but that's okay. Yeah, this experience it. So the Chatzi Kaddish, which formally separates the sort of early part of the service into the main part of the service, is found on page 224. Yitkadal vayitkadosh shemeha be'amadi rachute v'amlich malchute b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayedecho beit Yisrael b'hagala u'v'zman kahariv v'imeru amen yehi shmira b'mevorach le'alam lamehamaya Yitbarach, vayishtabach, vayitpa'al, vitromam, vitnase, vitadar, vitaleh, shemedet v'desha b'richu, leila min kol bechata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amira beyama, v'imeru amen. Did all that, yes. So the point of the first part of the service is to sort of just thank God for our souls and for our lives, for our bodies, and sort of warm up. And then we have a formal, what's called our call to worship on page 226. And you'll notice on page 226, this is now we get into an area of the prayer And if you notice on the left-hand side in the English and on the right-hand side in the Hebrew in the prayer book, you'll see that it actually sort of lists out the sections. And you see the highlighted part says Baruch Hu at the very top. Do you see how it's bolded right on the top of page 100? Sorry, of 227 and or page 226. So what that is saying is that this is the next section of prayers that we're in, and this next section of the prayers is called Shema Ubirchotecha, or the Shema and her blessings. And it's all of the blessings that sort of surround the blessing of the Shema, which is one of the central prayers that we have in Judaism. And the Shema is a reminder that God is one, right? And that we are to listen to God, to be witnesses to God in the universe and the infinite nature of God all around us. And so this is actually a formal call to worship. We invite you to please rise. And we continue with the words of Baruch Hu on page 226. Baruch Hu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamevorach leolam va'ed. On page 228 together in English. Praise are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, creator of light and darkness, who makes peace and fashions all things. In mercy, you illumine the world and those who live upon it. In your goodness, your daily renew us creation. How numerous are your works, Adonai. In wisdom, you form them all, filling the earth with your creatures. Be praised, Adonai, our God, for the excellent work of your hands, and for the lights you created, may they glorify you. Shine a new light upon Zion, that we all may swiftly merit its radiance. Praised are you, Adonai, creator of all heavenly lights. Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer Hamarot. On page 232, the words of Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Please be seated. And we continue with the words of Ve'ahavta on page 234. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol lebavcha v'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzalecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta b'ham v'shivtecha b'beitecha Uvlechtecha b'derech, uvshokbecha ukumecha, ukshartam le'ot al yadecha, v'hayu letotafot beinenecha, uvtatam al mezuzot beitecha, ubisha'arecha, lema'an tizkeru, v'asitem et kol mitzvotai, v'ten kedoshim le'lohechem, ahani Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, Lihiyot lachem le'Elohim, ani Adonai Elohechem. The words of the Behafta come directly from actually in the Shema. If you turn actually to go back, I'm going to ask you to go back, page 232 and 233, and you'll notice the words of the Shema that are written in large print across the top of the page. And if you notice, one of the things that I love most, that I always love teaching about, is in this. It's kind of hard to see in this print, but I think they tried to do it. But do you notice in the large print of the Shema in the Hebrew that is in the big arc, look at the first word. And do you notice how the last letter of the first word on the right-hand side, right? It looks kind of like a Y. That letter is an ayin. Do you notice how it's a little larger than the letters that are next to it? Right? Can you see that a little? It's like a little hard to see. But if you look at the last letter of the word echad on the first line, on the last word, it's right. You'll notice that the last letter, the daled, is also enlarged. And the idea there is that that's actually how it's written in the Torah scroll itself. In the Torah, it's written within a large ayin, the last letter of the first word, and a large daled, the last letter of the last word. And so our rabbis ask us, well, what does that mean? Well, we don't exactly know why those two letters were written larger than any of the other letters. If you take those two letters and you put them together, right, they spell one of two words. They spell either ad, which means infinite, right, that which is the infinite nature of God, like forever and ever and ever, or they spell aid, which means witness, right? And the idea is that we can be witnesses to God, right? We are a witness to God, to the infinite nature of God, when we listen to our hearts, to the universe around us. And so the prayers of creation, right, that sort of remind us of creation in our bodies and our souls, right? And then to thank God for all of the universe that is created. This is about how we have become witnesses to God. And then as we work with the words of the Hafta, which are follow those words of the Shema and the Torah on page 234, right? The words of the Hafta, which come from Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 5 through 9, right? Those words are talking about sort of, okay, now that we've listened to the infinite nature of God and the universe, what is the love that what value of love do we experience and then also perpetuate through our own being, right? And how do we love like God loves? How do we pass these values towards others? One of the ways in which we do that is we recognize that the world as it is not as it ought to be, right? That the world as it is not the way that we sort of envision the world can be. And so one of the ways in which we both are witnesses to God, but then express God's love in the world, is through seeing the world for what it is. All synagogues are supposed to have a mirror, or not a mirror, excuse me, a window. I said that wrong. A window, right? We're supposed to have a window. And I always think it's kind of funny that in this congregation, the most beautiful view is for the person who's leading the prayer looking out. But if you look around, right, if you look behind you, you'll see this absolutely beautiful, amazing view of the grasses and the trees and everything around us. And all synagogues are supposed to have this window, and the recognition is that the prayers that we have are not supposed to be confined to the space, but the prayers that we have are supposed to be connected. Hello, Shabbat Shalom. The prayers that we have are supposed to be connected to the world in which we live, right? That we have to be engaged in the world in which we live. So our Song of Freedom, which is found on page 240, this is the song of what's called Micha Mocha. The prayer books are underneath your seats. If you would like to have a prayer book, you can look. If you reach underneath your seat, you'll find a prayer book. I think right underneath, behind, like, yeah, or right there. But yep, no problem. And the words are on page 240, and the words of Micha Mocha are words that sort of remind us of of the freedom that we had when we experienced slavery and servitude in Egypt. We imagined a better place in a promised land, and then this is the song of freedom that our people sang as they were able to seek freedom from enslavement. On page 240. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedahar b'kodesh, nora tehilot, osefele, Shira Hadasha Shifu Geulim Leshimcha Asfahataya Yahad Kuha Odu Bimlichu Beamru Adonai Himok Leolam Bahe Adonai Himok Leolam Bahe Adonai Imo Leolam Vahem Leolam Vahem Sur Yisrael Kuma Be'ezrat Yisrael Ufdek Nemecha Yehuda Yisrael Go Aleinu Adonai Tzvaot Shemo Kedosh Yisrael Baruch Atah Adonai Ga'ah Yisrael. I'm going to invite you to please rise and turn to page 242, and we will sing the blessings of the Amidah together. Adonai Sefatai Tita Ufia Hitehivateka. Adonai, open up my lips that I may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Eloheinu v'imoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Leah, Ha'el Gadol, Ha'el Yehov, Romel Chassadim Tovim, Vekonei HaKoho, V'zocher Kasei Avot V'imahot, U'mevi Yuvam B'Bethlehem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham V'Ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayeach Kol Atah Rav Le'Hoshia, Mashiv HaRuach U'Morid HaGashem, Mechakel Chaim B'Chesed, Mechaye HaKol B'Rachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim V'Rofech Cholim, U'Matir Asurim, U'Mekayem Emunato, L'Shei Yahapah. Mi Hamocha Ha'agivugo, Umi Domela, Melech Negi Tumechayeh, Umatzniach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah l'chayot ha'kol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh ha'kol. Page 248. Nekadesh et shemcha ba'olam, Keshem shemachti shimoto v'shmemato, Kakatu v'aya neviyecha, V'kavra ze'el ze' ve'ama, Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzvaot, Melech Kevod. Adirenu Adonai, Adonai, Adir Ha'aretz, Baruch Kevod Adonai, Mimkomo, Echad Eloheinu, U'avinu Malkeinu, U'moshienu v'hu yashir, Berachama v'henei kocha, Ani Adonai Elohecha, Yimloch Adonai le'olam, Elohai Echzion, Ledor vador. Hallelujah. Ledor vador nagid golecha, Ulanetza netzachim kishatcha nachdish, V'shivchacha Eloheinu, Mipinu lo yamush le'olam, Vahen, Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el, HaKadosh. We continue with silent prayers, and I want to invite you to actually look at prayers that are on the right-hand side of the page, or maybe even the left-hand side of the page. The left-hand side has sort of creative interpretations of prayers and different opportunities, and we're going to continue silently through page 260, or whenever your prayers are finished. I want to invite you to not have, you don't have to read every single prayer on the page. That's not the point. Find a prayer, right? Read something and just sort of get settled in. Find or take a moment that then draws you into sort of a recognition of what's going on in your life and allow you just to take a moment for personal reflection in this space. We'll continue in silence, and then when your prayers are finished, I invite you to please be seated. Ose shalom bimroma, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru v'hivru amen. Yahase shalom, Yahase shalom, Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, Yahase shalom, Yahase shalom, Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. We're going to do a sort of creative Torah experience this morning, and just invite all of you to come on up for Seder Kriyat Torah, and we're going to open up the Torah. Piece of paper. Okay, want to take one and pass them? Oh, thank you. So this is okay, come on closer. Come on closer. This is the easiest Torah portion to find, because it's the very beginning. You can't go before this Torah portion. So, perfect, great. So I want you to, you'll see, actually, have you hold on? Great, perfect. All right. So the Torah, this is the very beginning of Genesis, and you'll see that I actually, the part that I am going to read for you from the Torah is actually at the very top of the handout this morning, and it is about the first day of creation, and we're going to talk about sort of a value of that in a second, but you'll see at the very beginning right here. Do you see, if you look at it, you'll see that the bet from Bereshit, from in, like ba, which means in the, or ba, right, means in the, and that means you'll see that the bet is larger also. Remember how I pointed out the other larger letters? This is one of those instances where there's a larger letter as well. The bet is larger than the rest of the letters, and that's the very beginning of the Torah. So the blessing for the Torah is on page 368. I'll say the blessing today. Baruch Hu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai Barach le'olam ba'ed. Baruch Adonai Barach le'olam ba'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'Torah. So it says Bereshit bara Elohim. Bereshit, in the beginning, bara Elohim, God created et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. God created the heavens and the earth. The haaretz hayita tohu v'vochu, and the earth was unformed and void. The choshech al panei hamayim, and v'choshech al panei hom. Baruch Elohim mirachef al panei hamayim. And there was darkness on the face of the depths, and God sort of swept over the face of the waters. Vayomer Elohim Yehi Or, and God said, "There shall be light." Vayihi Or, and then there was light. V'yar Elohim et haor, and God saw the light, and He said it was ki tov, it was good. Vayavdel Elohim bein haor uvein hoshech, and then God separated the light from the darkness. Vayikra Elohim laor, and God called that separation the day laor yom. He's called the light day. The hoshech kara laila, and the night He called it the darkness He called night. Vahi erev vahi voker yom echad. It was evening, and then it was morning, and that was the first day. Right? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu torat emet v'chayei olam natav b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen. So, so you have this, you have God who, in the beginning, creates from not taking matter, but actually through speaking, right? Through literally, like with God's own voice, like sort of speaking and calling. And there's this formula that exists within Jewish tradition, within this Torah portion, which says God is going to imagine that something's going to happen. Then it happens, or says it's going to happen, then it happens, and then God calls that good, right? So this will happen, then it does happen, and then God calls it good. So you see it actually right here. It says, Elohim, Yehi-or. It says, so Vayomer Elohim, Yehi-or, right? And God says, there's going to be light, right? Vayihi-or, then there was all of a sudden light. Vayar Elohim, God saw, right? Et haor, God saw the light, and God said, it was ki tov, it was good, right? So there's going to be something, then there is something, and then it's considered good, right? And part of what we're sort of taught in Judaism is that we too can act like God, right? In the sense that we can work to make that something, happen in our lives, in our world, right? And then try to acknowledge what is good from it, right? And so that idea is sort of repeated over and every single day. Another thing that's important is that becomes the basis. If you've ever wondered, well, why did the Jewish holidays always start in the evening? I don't know if that's ever a question that you ever encountered. Have you ever noticed that the Jewish holidays all begin at night? Right, Shabbat begins at night. All the holidays begin. Right, all the holidays begin at night. Well, that's because it says in the Torah, right? Vayihi erev, vayihi boker yom echad. It was evening, and then it was morning, the first day. If you look at here, it says, vayihi erev. Sorry, it's right here. It says, vayihi erev, vayihi boker yom sheni. It was evening, and then it was morning, a second day. Right, and the idea is that from that we start to see the beginning of the formation of the calendar, and that the evening time is the beginning of the first day, and then the morning time is the continuation of that first day. Right, so that's why in tradition holidays begin at night. If that's ever crossed your mind. All right, we'll close the Torah, and then actually, I'm gonna just roll it a little further. It's not always great for the Torah to be at the very end, because as you can imagine, it's a really sort of weak spot within the Torah. So even though we're at the very beginning, we sort of roll it up a little in order to make sure that the Torah is safe. Do you have any questions about what I just read, or did you have any questions? We'll talk a little about what's on your sheets and stuff. Any questions about the Torah or
Do we still have holy rollers?
I actually don't know if we have. So I don't think we still have it for us. I think that's something that actually went by the wayside through COVID. Actually, I think sort of.
We had people who would come in who would unroll and re-roll the Torahs to make sure that they get air and stuff, check them.
Yeah.
But they were called holy rollers.
But during COVID, we actually had every one of our Torah scrolls checked, and we did maintenance on the Torah. We realized that if no one was in the building and no one was here, no one was using Torahs, it was a perfect time to do maintenance on the Torah scrolls.
And I think I told y'all about the Geniza, right? When a Torah scroll, if it gets too old or damaged, you bury it.
Yeah, you put it into an urn, actually. You create a clay urn, and then you take the scroll itself off of the Eitz Chaim, the wood, and then you basically scroll up the scroll into one scroll, and then you put it into the urn, cap the urn, and then you bury the urn.
Does the urn go into the Geniza?
No, the urn goes in the Geniza, or it goes into the burial site.
Interesting.
So that's why, if you've ever learned about the Dead Sea,
I was about to say the Dead Sea.
the Dead Sea Scrolls, if you ever learned about the Dead Sea Scrolls, the urns in the Dead Sea Scrolls, that the purpose of those urns was to bury the texts. And so that's what the Dead Sea Scrolls were. They were effectively a geniza, and the only reason why they lasted so long is because the climate itself is such that there's not enough water and rain to. It's such desert climate that it actually preserved the documents. Had there been more humidity, moisture in the air, then it would have been a real problem. All right, so if you want to sit down, you can sit down for this. I mean, you don't have to stay standing. You can sit. I'm happy to stand around and talk, but I have a couple of texts that I thought. So at the beginning of the story of Genesis, we have the story. You'll see in Genesis 3:8 verses 8 through 10. You'll see that you have Adam and Eve, right? And Adam and Eve, they said they heard the sound of God and moving about in the garden of the breezy time of day. And the human and his wife hid from God and among the trees of the garden. And then God, Adonai, right, called out to the human and said to them, where are you? Right? That question, Ayecha, where are you? And I want you to think, like, on this Shabbat, I want us to think about that question, Ayecha, where are you? Right? God calling to us instead of asking us, where are you? And man replied, he said, I heard the sound of you in the garden. I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid. Right? Martin Buber on the next page sort of says, God does not expect to learn something God does not know. Right?
That's true.
Right? What God wants is to produce an effect in us, which can only be produced by such a question like Ayecha, like, where are you? Right? That question, where are you, is sort of, it's not that God doesn't know the answer to where the human is. It's that the question itself, where are you, is a good question for us in terms of, so what? Yeah, reflection. Exactly. A type of, what is that reflective question that causes us to consider our souls and our lives and who we are, and to imagine, to understand where we are in the world, right? And he says that, Buber says that we allow it to reach our heart. We hide to avoid rendering accounts, to escape responsibility. Right? Every person hides for this purpose, for every person is Adam and finds him or herself in Adam's situation. To escape responsibility for our life, we turn existence into a system of hideouts. The question is designed to awaken us and destroy our system of hideouts. It is to show us that what paths we have come to awake in us, the great will to get out of it. Everything now depends on whether we face the question. Right? Can we do the reflection that we have to do to face the question of who we are, how we live in the world? That question of Ayecha, where are you, is a really important question about sort of how we exist in this world. Larry Kushner, I actually failed to say who wrote this, but Rabbi Lawrence Kushner wrote this. He says, change begins by not trying to change. And what you imagine you must do in order to change yourself is often the very force that keeps you precisely the way you are. If you could remain still long enough here, now in this very place, you would discover who you are. And by discovering who you are, you would at least be free, discover who you yet might also be. Right? So part of it is asking the question, Ayecha, where are you? And then part of it is the reflective work, right, of sort of sitting with yourself long enough to consider who you are in this space. And so this comes from a meditation work that I have done. This RAIN, it's called, the acronym is RAIN, and it's to recognize, acknowledge, investigate, and notice, right? To recognize, to notice and name the thoughts, emotions, or sensations as they arise. And then to acknowledge and to accept them as they are, noticing and releasing judgment of them. Like, that's the feeling. I know that thing. I'm just going to accept it as it is, right? I am disappointed in myself again about something, right? That is There is a reason for that disappointment. And to sort of gently ask yourself, Ayacha, what's going on in your mind and your body? Where are you? And then to notice the thoughts, the emotions, and sensations as they arise, as they change and they pass. And then whispering to yourself, say, this is not me, it's just passing through me, right? I feel disappointed in myself, but I am not disappointment, right? Or joy, right? Or any of like that is, I am not any one of these things, I am all of that. But it sort of sits with how do you sort of recognize, how do you acknowledge it, how do you ask, where are you in this space? And then how do you notice what comes out of it? And then finally, you'll notice on the last page, a poem, The Guest House by Rumi, which is translated by Coleman Barks. And Rumi says, this being human is a guest house. Every morning is a new arrival. A joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they are a crowd of sorrows who will violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whatever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from the beyond. You are not any one of those things, but we have to sort of welcome them in and ask the question, notice them in our lives, do that reflective work, and see that that we are more complex than any one of these things. We are all of it. Shabbat shalom. If you guys want to go back to your seats, we're going to continue with the words of Aleinu L'Shabeach on the bottom of page 282. We'll rise for the words of Aleinu. So if you'll please stand. Sorry, page 586, the bottom of page 586. I'm sorry if I gave the wrong page number. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon hakol, la'tet gedula le'otzeh breshit, shelo asanu kegoy ha'ratzot, ve'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo samchalkenu kahem, ve'gohor aleinu kechohamuna. Va'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'nehema v'Adonai l'melech ha'pohatz bayom ha'hu Yeh Adonai echad, u'shemo echad. Dropped a list. We'll stay standing for the words of Kaddish Tone, the mourner's Kaddish. Each and every week, we remember those in our community who have died at this season in years past, and those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own. The mourner's Kaddish can be found on page 598. We're in the period of Shloshim, the first 3 days after the deaths of Betty Jean Chatham, Barry Fleur, Edward Morton Katz, Jack Mendel, Richard Dick Silverman, and Kim Worrell. We mark with sympathy and sadness the deaths of Judy Abrams, Seymour Armstrong, Louis Arroyo, Joseph Barr, Francis Barrell, Henry D. Burney, Lillian Brusky, Sylvia Cheen, Jack Cole, Lee Dolliner, Pearl Dresner, Eileen Emerson, Leanne Valesky, Mildred Fernbach, Murray Flessener, Rada Gerber, Stanley Gertzman, Leo Glansman, Jenny Golden, Eddie Grunberg, Julius Helfstein, Sadie Hendler, Henry Hirschman, Bruce Jacobowitz, Amy Jacobson, Gary Lewis Kaplowitz, Barbara Kirsch, Susan Klein, Shulamit Nakin, Ronald Kokler, Eleanor Levitt, Herman Leibowitz, Estelle Levine, Mary Ann Levinson, Harry Lewis, Lawrence M. Lids, Stanley Liss, Raymond Talmadge McGaha, Jacob Molaski, Mary Merritt, Harry M. Myers Jr., Nathan Otto Newman, Roger Oberndorf, Ruth Rifkin, Joan Rosenzweig, Erna Rubens, Mary Rutman, Ernest Shyrock, Annette Seitland, David Scher, Victoria Arroyos Sokoloff, Lee Sweetbaum, Joel Tannenbaum, Abraham Teich, Robert Tibor, Sam Weiss, Emily Weissman, Eleanor Wilcox. Are any of you remembering someone here today? Right. We also mark with sympathy and sadness those who died in the Shoah and the Holocaust, our American servicemen and women, those who are first responders who've given their lives for our freedoms, and those who died defending the state of Israel. On page 598, the words of Kaddish Yatom. Yitzkadal vayitzkadash shemei rabba, be'alma divrachu te v'amlich malchute, b'chayechon u'vyomechon u'v'chaye jachol beit Yisrael, ba'gala u'bizman kariv v'imru, amen. Yehe shemei rabba mevarach le'olam u'lamei olamaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitraman v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yithaleh v'yithalal, shemei dekudashah richu. Ve'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechamata, da'amiram be'alma v'imru, amen. Yehe shama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom bin romav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom bin romav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. This concludes our service this morning. Shabbat shalom to everyone who's here and those who are joining us online. Shabbat shalom.